Ferrari just told Charles Leclerc to copy Hamilton's brakes. That's not teamwork, it's surrender. If you've been following Ferrari this year, you know something strange just happened. It wasn't a new aero package or a shock team order. It was something far more intimate, and far more dangerous. Ferrari decided to switch Charles Leclerc's brake system to match Lewis Hamilton's. On the surface, that sounds like a logical move: align the cars, make life easier for the incoming 7-time champion. But in Formula 1, brakes are personal. Drivers spend years developing a feel for how the pedal travels, how the bite point engages, how the system releases. It's like handwriting, unique, muscle memory deep, and almost impossible to replicate. So why would Ferrari force their star driver, the guy who's been their future for years, to change that? Let's back up to the start of 2024. Leclerc had a rough beginning, struggling with inconsistent rear grip and a nervous car. But by mid-season, Ferrari found a setup window that worked. Leclerc started winning: Monaco, Monza, Austin. He was on fire. Meanwhile, Hamilton was having his worst season ever at Mercedes. He was 7th in the standings, complaining about the car's unpredictability. But his brake preference stayed the same: he likes a firm pedal, early bite, and a system that's extremely responsive. Leclerc, on the other hand, has always preferred a slightly softer pedal with a more progressive feel. It's not right or wrong, it's just different. So when Ferrari announced they'd switch Leclerc's brakes to Hamilton's spec, the paddock went silent. Because that's not a small tweak. That's a fundamental change to how a driver interacts with the car. And it's happening months before Hamilton even arrives. Why would Ferrari do that now? The official line: they want both drivers on the same system to maximize development efficiency. But ask any engineer, you don't move a proven winner away from what works unless you've already picked your favorite. This is Ferrari signaling that Hamilton is the priority. And Leclerc knows it. In fact, sources inside the team say Leclerc was not consulted on the change. He was told. Imagine being a driver who's been with the team for 6 years, who's won races, who's been loyal through the chaos, and then you're told to change your driving style for a guy who hasn't even sat in the car yet. That's not how champions are built. That's how resentment is born. Now, let's talk about the actual consequence. Brake bias, pedal travel, and bite point aren't just comfort items. They affect entry speed, trail braking, and tire warm-up. A driver who's forced into a different system will lose time, sometimes half a second, sometimes more. And in the hyper-competitive midfield of 2025, half a second is the difference between pole and Q2 elimination. Of course, Leclerc is talented enough to adapt. But adaptation takes time, and time is something Ferrari doesn't have. They're trying to chase down Red Bull and McLaren, and now they're experimenting with their own drivers' hardware mid-season. It feels like panic dressed as strategy. And it gets worse. Hamilton himself has a history of being notoriously difficult when it comes to brake setup. At Mercedes, the team built the entire brake system around his preferences. He's known to reject changes that don't match his feel, even if the data says they're faster. So if Ferrari is bending Leclerc to Hamilton's spec now, what happens when Hamilton actually arrives and demands further changes? Will Leclerc have to change again? Or will Ferrari simply design the 2026 car around Hamilton and leave Leclerc to fit in? This is the same team that famously said the car is built around the driver during the Schumacher era. But they also said that with Alonso, and with Vettel, and look how those stories ended. Ferrari has a pattern of favoring the new star until the new star stumbles, then the old favorite gets a second chance. But this time, they're not waiting for Hamilton to arrive, they're already changing the car. That's unprecedented. There's a rumor that Leclerc's contract actually includes a clause saying the team cannot disadvantage him based on Hamilton's preferences. If that's true, then this brake switch is a direct violation. And we might see the first legal dispute between a Ferrari driver and the team since the Kimi Fernando era. Imagine the headlines: Leclerc sues Ferrari over brake pedal. It sounds ridiculous until you realize drivers have left teams over less. Sergio Perez left Red Bull because he felt the car was built around Verstappen. Ricciardo left McLaren because he couldn't adapt the car to his style. In F1, if you don't have the car under your fingertips, you don't win. And if Ferrari is handing the fingertips to Hamilton before he's even driven a lap, they're sending a message: Leclerc, you're the supporting act now. But here's the twist: what if the brake switch actually helps Leclerc? Some engineers argue that a firmer pedal is actually more consistent and easier to drive over a race distance. Maybe Leclerc has been handicapping himself with a softer pedal, and the change unlocks pace he didn't know he had. It's possible, but it's also a massive gamble. Because if it backfires, Ferrari has just weakened their own driver for no gain. And Hamilton, watching from Mercedes, must be thinking, is this really the team I want to join? A team that changes its own driver's hardware to please a guy who's not even there. That's not a sign of a well-run organization, it's a sign of panic. Hamilton wanted to leave Mercedes because he felt the team wasn't giving him the car he needed. He wanted a fresh start where he'd be the priority. And now, without even asking, Ferrari made him the priority over their current star. That's exactly what Hamilton feared the most, a Ferrari that would bend over backward before he even arrives. Because if they're willing to do this for him, what else are they willing to sacrifice? Team harmony. Loyalty. A driver's trust. Hamilton knows that a team that disrespects one driver will eventually disrespect the other. He's been in F1 long enough to see the cycle. Ferrari falls in love with a driver, then devours them. Schumacher, Alonso, Vettel, all left burned. And now Hamilton is walking into that fire, with Leclerc already feeling the heat. The big question, will Leclerc accept this or fight back? If he fights back, we could see a civil war inside Ferrari before Hamilton even straps in. If he accepts, he might never be the same driver. Either way, this brake switch is not about brakes. It's about power, loyalty, and the future of the most storied team in motorsport. And the weirdest part? We don't even know if Hamilton will be faster with these brakes. What if he gets to Ferrari, tries the system he requested, and hates it? What if he blames the team for building a car around a setup he used at Mercedes, a team that had completely different weight distribution and suspensions? Then Ferrari will have alienated Leclerc for nothing. That's the nightmare scenario, both drivers unhappy with the same car, and the team stuck in the middle. But it's exactly where Ferrari always ends up. So as we watch the 2025 season unfold, keep an eye on Leclerc's braking traces. If he starts locking the rears more often, or struggling in slow corners, you'll know why. And if he suddenly becomes faster, then maybe Ferrari's gamble paid off. But I wouldn't bet on it. Because in F1, you don't change a winning driver's hardware, you change the team around him. And Ferrari just proved they're willing to change the driver instead. That's a dangerous precedent. And it might be the story that defines the Hamilton-Ferrari era before it even begins.